Life is a quest for logic and reason. It is a quest to find balance between science and faith. Life is a quest for knowledge and understanding. But most importantly, it's a quest for personal discovery. Whatever your quest, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Welcome to Quest. Hi, Anthony. Welcome to the Quest podcast.
Hey, Todd. Thanks for having me.
So where to begin?
I know.
It's been weird. It's been like old friends week, recording interviews. Michael was on before you, and it's been a celebration these last 10 episodes before we get to episode 100.
Yeah, I know. That's exciting.
I think you're 98. I think you're episode 98.
Close to the end. Nice.
Yeah, and we've known each other for a long time. We work together on various things. You're actually a producer on these podcasts.
Yep.
For the audience, he's the silent producer who never shows up to work on any of these, but he does get a credit.
Whatever works. I
So
do
you
more work than a lot of people do.
You couldn't really turn me down, right, to do the interview because you are on the closing credits. As of the recording of this podcast, I think we're like close to 320 episodes across all the podcasts we produce.
Yeah,
which is a pretty big deal because we haven't been doing this all that long. It doesn't seem like, anyways.
Feels like just yesterday, honestly.
What we're going to get started by talking about, kind of our working involvement, and then we'll go back in time before that. But you worked in my. We're going way back, bro. So you worked in my Metacortex Publishing company. Now, I had already been doing Quest for a while. Quest had been running since COVID, and it was a while before the next podcast came around. So refresh my memory. Were we already doing a Catholic's perspective when you came on? Do you remember?
I wanted to say it was kind of in the beginning stages of it. So yeah, I think it had already started. So I kind of came in like the beginning of it.
Yeah. And you came on to help out with books and to help out with podcasts. And really we kind of outgrew ourselves early on, not necessarily from the books because the books take so long and it's so slow putting those out.
Right.
And I will just say real quick for the audience, we had 3 books out this year. So 3 books is a new benchmark for the company. We had been putting 2 out a year. This year we got 3 out. Next year we're scheduled for at least 4, but we may get as many as 6 out. So the publishing arm of Metacortex Publishing is doing really well. And we're up to 7 podcasts that we produce now. But that's really where the origin of your business, Crown International Management Group, came from. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how you kind of sprung from Metacortex Publishing to the creation of Crown?
Yeah. So first of all, I was like, I'm very grateful that you invited me into the publishing world and kind of gave me a new outlook. It's something I haven't really done before. So whenever we started looking into it, I was like, this is great. I help managing these clients, try to figure out ways to get them bookings and appearances and everything like that. And I was just like, this is something that I feel like I could really do a great job on. And I was like, maybe we should extend this and blow this up. And then so you and I kind of sat down and talked over, and eventually we created Crown International Management Group, where we'd have, a more wide range of clients and be able to have more opportunities to do different things. So, you and I, we spent a week down in my basement or longer. I can't remember how long it was, but just grinding it out, trying to put up a business plan, figured out how we wanted it to look like, what kind of services we wanted to provide, how we wanted to manage the clients. And then after grinding those long hours and days, and I was ready for you to leave, we finally came down with what we wanted, and here we are. We're in year 2, just grinding it out. Pretty exciting.
About to start year 3.
about to start year 3, and it's been a great opportunity for me. I feel like there's a lot of growth, not just in that business realm, but also too just in myself. I never would have thought that I'd be interviewing people like that I have, these public figures, and be able to find ways to connect with them. But everything's been like super successful on that end, and I've met some wonderful people. I
We
can't even I can't even tell you how grateful I am for these opportunities.
we were literally in your basement on whiteboards, just
Yeah,
sketching out what we wanted it to look like.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
Grinding it
it's
out.
funny to think back of like the first 4 clients. They were our people that have been with us for years. Obviously, naturally, we're the first ones to come on. But then we started to get some really impressive people to come on the roster. What does it do for you to be around exceptional, these exceptional people like this? For me, and I've said this many times on the podcast, that there was a certain point in my life where I just wanted to create a bubble and inhabit it with people that I wanted to be around. So it wasn't uncommon for me. Like one of my old mentors, he would sit me down at a table and there would be like a popular fantasy artist and, the actor that played Darth Vader and the actor that played the Incredible Hulk. And then there'd be, someone who produces movies over here, and there would be a screenwriter over here, and they would all be at the same table. And you would think, well, how do you set all those people at the table and have them get along or know each other or whatever? But everyone is always interested in what the other person does, no matter how different their work. And I was like, that's the bubble I want. So I would always, collect people to put in the bubble. And Crown is actually kind of a corporation doing that in a way. So like, I think one of our favorite clients, Lucy Westlake, is the youngest female to ever climb Mount Everest. Like, what does it do for you to be around people that have done incredible things? What's that like?
Well, first of all, it's kind of funny because you caught me at the right time to get into this industry, because I was just kind of soul searching and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I've done different things in my career and been successful in almost all of them, and just always felt empty and unfulfilled. So with these opportunities to meet these people, it's just been so inspirational and it motivates me to like keep grinding it out and like trying to figure out, even if I don't know what I'm doing, figuring out how to do it and how to do it well. And also too is like just hearing their stories and just the things that they overcome, and the diversity that they had to deal with, and the success that they've been able to grind out, and when even at times where they wanted to give up, helps me to be able to, like, even if I want to say I'm done with this, I'm not doing a good job, be like, no, I'm not done yet. I got to keep going. So it definitely pushes me. And it's been, like I said, such a blessing to meet these people. And the wonderful thing is, it's so weird how things line up in your life. Like with you reaching back out to me, because there was this time where we didn't even talk, like we lost contact. And you out of the blue hit me up. And it hit me caught me at the right time, because like I said, I was soul searching. And then like a lot of these people that I've talked to and, provided them like what services I can do for them and things I can help them out with in their own brands and businesses. They're like, yeah, that's exactly what I've been looking for. I just didn't know where to go. And it's weird that you reached out to me like you did. And they're like, it's just you're just randomly reaching out to people. I was like, yeah, I mean, like, we're just seeing people that's inspirational, and like they catch our eye, and like, all right, we'll see if they want to join, and then I'll talk to them. And just talking to them has been uplifting to me, and also to like my morale is like, I feel has been very positive ever since then, because I was going through some tough times.
Yeah.
So this has been very helpful for me, not just in the business world, but personally.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back a little bit in time. And I want to bring going to tell all Anthony's dirty secrets now.
I'm blocked off that time. I don't remember any of it.
Back when we were throwing P. Diddy parties. No, I'm kidding. That's not at all. That's a terrible joke to make right now. We threw no P. Diddy parties. I want to tell this part of your story because I feel like it will be inspirational for people, because I think people sometimes, go off into their 20s. And I mean, the 20s is when we're supposed to do stupid shit. I mean, that's really how it
Yeah.
is. Like, if you're going to screw up any decade, screw up your 20s and then get serious in your 30s. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. I was 34 before I got my crap together. Like I tell people that all the time. But we knew each other because I had just gotten married, and I would go down to this little corner Irish pub.
It was
by
before
my
you
house.
got married. I was at your wedding.
Yeah, you were at my wedding, so it was. But I was, with her. Like I don't think we knew each other when I was single.
No.
So yeah, so we would come to this corner pub, this Irish pub, and you were a bartender there.
Yep.
And since I like to drink, I always get to know my bartenders. They're some of my oldest friends, and that's how we met. Right? Like we only hung out a couple of times after hours. Like we weren't like we went out and did stuff kind of buddies. We just knew each other from the bar and we got along. And I think a couple of times I might have shown up at your apartment and we liked the same kinds of movies and stuff like that.
Well, also too is like you and your wife at the time, you guys would always cook me an extensive birthday dinner because my birthday was on New Year's Eve, and guess who all my friends were? They were all bartenders and servers, and guess who does not get a New Year's Eve off? Bartenders and servers.
Yep, so we would have you over for a birthday dinner. Yeah. So that was like a tradition for us. But you know how things go. Like people move. I moved away. You were still there at that bar. I think you went to a different bar, one I cared for less. And then people start to drift apart. And then before you know it, you're just emailing or sending an America Online message across or something,
Yeah.
That's how old we are.
Writing a letter.
I was MySpacing you. And yeah, so we sort of drifted apart. But you know how it is, like Instagram, Facebook, these social media sites kind of reconnect people. So literally years went by. I wasn't even in the Midwest anymore at a certain point. And I remember seeing like a lot of your posts were like those soul searching posts. I'm like, man, Anthony's going through some shit. I wonder what's going on with him. And I remember reaching out to you. And then you kind of telling me, your situation, you were a father now, you were going through a divorce, you were like mixed up a little bit. And that's how we reconnected. Yeah. And it wasn't too long after that, I think I might've either seen you in Louisville or I flew out to Colorado to see you. And we just sort of like, hey, what more would you like to do? Now you had left bartending behind a while back and you were actually in the aviation industry, in private aviation. So you had gotten a big boy
crazy.
Job. You were getting a big boy job. But that's the interesting thing about this, right? Like, of course, party and be a bartender in your 20s, right? And then get serious in your 30s. And then there's a family and things get more serious. And then the family breaks. And then there's another chapter. Like this is all part of the identity building process.
Right.
And so I think that this did hit you at the right time to do this, because this is something you never would have thought of doing on your own, probably.
Not in a million years. If you would have hit me up a couple years ago, I would have been like, what? I don't know anything about that. I don't even know what you're talking about. I wouldn't even know how to begin.
I think it's important, when we get into what I call Act 3, when we get to a certain age, we're like, you know what, we're looking at the last third now. A lot of people go into their last third miserable. Yeah. For any number of reasons, health problems, laid off from a job they had their whole life and that's all they knew, family getting fractured. People have bad third acts. And I feel like that your third act could be your best act.
Yeah.
And I felt like, well, that's what we could bring to the table here. Like really do something impressive and really be around people that inspire you, because when you're around people that are on the world stage, you can't help but be inspired by them. Like, how can you not? Like you've had people that have been in the Olympics. You've had people, literally a 15-year-old girl that climbed Mount Everest. Yeah. Who does that? It's like, how can you not want to do something to further what they're doing or have them share their story, because it's so inspirational. Yeah. And that was really the catalyst for Crown was, look, we can only publish books so fast, but imagine how many people's stories we could tell by creating Crown and letting people go out as a speakers bureau or to do appearances.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, a lot of, almost all my clients, they have wonderful stories of, how they got beat down and picked themselves up and been successful. on,
Perseverance.
perseverance, and their stories are just inspirational. And I love the fact that I have these people around me because, I personally want them to be able to be around my daughter. My thing is it's one of the main things I love about this is I feel like it creates opportunities, not just for me or my clients, but also too for my daughter and help her get inspired. I got these powerful women that I'm working with that she can learn from. And if she ever has those times of diversity and like issues come arise, she might be able to, with them, know how to work her way out of it. So
you have
to
a whole
me,
portion of the roster that's called successful women.
exactly, we do.
Yeah.
And they're all wonderful. Like I love them all. And every single one of them inspires me and gives me, hope, my daughter's success when she gets older, that she's going to be able to do whatever she wants. Even if she fails multiple times, that she'll be able to get back up, dust herself off and persevere.
For sure. For sure. Since the company started, it's expanded a great deal. How many clients do you have on the roster now? I can't remember how many there are.
I'm saying close to 40.
Close to 40.
Mm-hmm.
You've expanded into other things. You created Crown Experiences, and you kicked that off with Misha Garbett, who was in the Matilda musical movie. Tell everyone a little bit about what the experiences are and how that first experience went with Misha.
Yeah, so we definitely come up with these ideas of like trying to figure out good ways to have people to interact with the public figures out there in a different way, rather than just the normal get their autograph, just a little quick meet and greet, but actually be able to do stuff with them. So luckily we came across Misha and we collabed on doing an event there in Florida, in Orlando. So basically, it was they got to learn what they call the Red Beret dance, which is in the Matilda the musical, the movie on Netflix, and it was a big successful hit that she was doing on TikTok. So she was teaching these kids and young girls the moves and how to do the choreography of the dance, and then at the very end, they got to be able to do one-on-one dance with her recording. And then after that, they got to do some autographs. They had some merchandise that they could get. They'd be able to spend some time, ask her some questions and talk to her. Everybody had such a great time. And it was so cool because we were getting tags on social media, on Instagram, with these little girls on their way to the event and just singing the song in their cars and just hooping and hollering. And then, of course, when they left, we got tagged again about how excited they were and how grateful they were to be able to meet Misha. So those are the experiences that we're looking for, people to do something special.
I didn't get to go to that one in Orlando. You and Sam were there, but I thought what was really cool about the Crown Experience, and really what separates it from anything else, is like it's an opportunity. These Crown Experiences are like an opportunity that you can't get anywhere.
Right.
This is the only place you can get it, and like you gave out Red Berets to the kids. They got autographed photos. They got to do their little online video. Once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
And you've done several things like this, tennis events and the Roswell archaeological digs and other dance classes and things like that. And
geological hikes.
Right. So lots of really cool stuff you can do with really, really cool people. That's once in a lifetime events. So hopefully we get to see some really cool ones for next year.
Yeah, I'm just super excited, as our roster grows, what kind of experiences that we'll be able to create with the new clients, and just figuring out new ways for people to have these wonderful experiences and events that you're just not going to be able to see anywhere else, and try to bring them as we grow and get them bigger, be able to go to more locations rather than just one here and there. It could be like more of a national kind of thing and worldwide, even when we get there. So
for sure. You also have something called Crown Collectibles, and that's just a limited merchandise of your clients, things I can only get from you.
Yeah, it's like autograph photos, books, paintings, just whatever that we only have that you can't get anywhere else.
That's very cool. Do you think there will be a Crown International podcast in the future? Because it seems like you have a lot of guests that you could be interviewing.
Yes. And honestly, that's actually kind of been in the works. It's been a slow process. Had a lot of things going on this year. It's been a good and busy year with our growth, but it's definitely in the works. Would definitely like a way for people to interact and be able to hear the stories of my clients and kind of get a feel of who they are and be able to find ways to connect with them, rather than just like, oh, here's so and so, how about you book them, rather than so where now I can be like, all right, well, how about you listen to this and see if they're a good fit for you? Because I feel like it's just a good way for people to get their outreach, their story out there more, and be able to inspire as many people
for
as
your
possible.
customers to get to know them too.
That too. Yep.
Yeah. And you have sort of an unconventional company because you are based in Colorado, and you just don't hear about management companies and speakers bureaus being based in Colorado. Do you feel that this is helpful or hurtful?
It's kind of hard to say right now. I think in a way it's helpful because I don't want to be like any other management company that's out there, where we're just trying to make the dollar and not really give care to our people.
They treat them like cattle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel like numbers. I want them to feel like, they're almost like friends and family. I want like kind of like a family atmosphere. So I have gotten pretty good positive feedback so far being based out of Colorado, because I've heard, the LA or New York based ones, the popular ones, to them, they felt like cattle, they felt like just a number.
You go to some of these companies online and they've got 5,000 people listed in dozens and dozens of categories. You're like, how do they manage all of this? It's impossible. Like, they couldn't be giving these people any special treatment.
Yeah, I don't even see how they could. I feel like there's a good number to get to, but where it's not going to be, again, like just cattle or numbers. But I feel like there is a sweet spot, and I'm looking to get there.
For sure. What's the future look like? Do you see your roster expanding? Do you have any special services that might be coming out? What does 2025 look like?
Yeah, definitely. Right now, I'm in the works of expanding my team, and with that is looking at the growth. Definitely a roster growth. I'm not going to lie, I would love to reach at least 100 clients. That's what I'm looking for, hopefully by next year. And then, other services, looking at, possibly some consulting services, some social media services, pretty much anything in that realm, even like video content.
Yeah. I know, I was mentioning if it was difficult or an advantage to be Colorado based. This is pretty much your life now, what you're doing. Like, you're out of the aviation industry. You don't bartend anymore. You do what you did before. Like, this is like what you are doing, but you're also involved in businesses. You're involved with our mutual friend, Michael Lowe, who was just recently a podcast guest. And my audience could hear, my story and his together. And I've introduced you to him this year. He's kind of a new contact for you. And you're involved with him down in the Roaring Fork Valley with businesses.
Yeah.
So you are kind of tied in a number of ways in different parts of the state, with you up near Boulder running this management group, and you, out in the Roaring Fork Valley and in Carbondale and some of these small towns. Like, what's that like? What's it like now entrenching yourself in the business community in the state you've been in for a while?
Honestly, it's been super amazing. I love it. I love these opportunities that have, to me, like, come out of nowhere. It's been great. The networking and just meeting these people across the state has been amazing. And just kind of seeing where they're coming from, what kind of solutions that they're coming up with, what kind of issues that there are, and what ways that there's ways to collaborate and to be able to fix these issues to make the state better, especially in the workforce. That's kind of what I'm helping Mike with, is helping the workforce in the Western Slopes. And hopefully eventually we'll get it to where we have it a good plan to be able to present to the front range where I'm at and be able to kind of help grow that as well. Because, I just know it's really hard to find good jobs here. Even though they're there, a lot of people just don't know where to go. So we'd like to be able to provide those young adults, these young professionals, these opportunities to be able to find good paying jobs, such as like mechanical job, carpentry, working in, even banking, anything like that. And, be able to help them get the confidence and the skill sets to be able to acquire those jobs, where I feel like people.
Am I too old to be a snowboard instructor now?
I would have said it maybe a few years ago.
I'm just gonna throw all this away and I'm gonna go out and just.
Well, as long as you don't break your legs in the first run.
I'm thinking about taking up smoking pot and just teaching snowboarding. I heard that Colorado's the place to go for that.
You got to make sure you do the psychedelics too, my friend.
Oh, the psychedelics. Well, I don't want to mess with my brain. It's my best tool. Yeah.
You wouldn't be a good fit.
That wouldn't be a good fit. I'm sorry. I tried to do drugs. They kicked me out. Yeah. They said, no, sorry, you're not allowed here.
Yeah.
But speaking of Colorado is a beautiful state. I was there in April with you for a month. You and Mike for a month. And I couldn't really participate much because I had a bad knee. Like my knee was shot. And but I want you to tell everyone kind of like what you like about the state. You went there from Kentucky. Before that, you were in Texas. Like you've lived in a little bit of the country. Tell me what you specifically like about Colorado, and if this is the state you're going to die in, or whether there's other adventures in store for Anthony. But what do you like about the state?
It's funny. I can't really sit there and say it's going to be my forever home. I always have this itch of going somewhere else. So not really sure what the future entails on that end, but right now, like I definitely enjoy Colorado. I love the scenery. I love the mountains. There's something majestic about them. Just looking at them, especially when the snow caps are there. And of course, like I've always been an outdoorsy person. So like this fits my niche. I can pretty much anything you do out here in Colorado is going to be outside. So there's so much to do. So sometimes that it's a little overwhelming. It's like, what am I going to do today? Am I going to go kayaking? Am I going canoeing, whitewater rafting, or mountain biking, or snowboarding, or hiking?
Russell cattle.
Yeah, Russell cattle. But it's also too is like just the scenery. You got the Front Range, which is like the plains, so it looks like you're.
Someone's got to explain that to me sometime. What all these ranges and slopes and things mean.
The Gulch, the Gulches, they're all the same. But and then you got the mountain towns. They're just beautiful. So many views. You got spring waters. The weather is, usually pretty good. It gets windy. That I'm not a big fan of, but the fact that mosquitoes are kind of non-existent and the humidity level is super low, big win for me. Definitely coming from Kentucky and East Texas. Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy not walking out the door and sweating.
A lot of people don't realize that Colorado is the gateway to the West. It's the first state where the geography really shifts to where you start to get that feel of what the West is like.
Yeah, and people don't underestimate too. Like the sun is so close that you get burned really easy. Like honestly, it's worse than being at the beach. So definitely wear your sunscreen and always have sunglasses if you come here. For sure.
What's your day to day like? When we reconnected, you were obviously going through some soul searching, which you've gotten through. I think you've, gotten in touch with how to deal with the mental and the spiritual angle. But me, I always talk mind, body, soul. You got to always maintain all three of those things. So tell the audience what your day-to-day routine is. How do you keep a level head? What's your physical, what's your mental, what's your spiritual routine? What do you do daily?
Yeah, well, I kind of want to start from the beginning of what, I guess you can say traumatic issues that I dealt with. When I was the age of 14, I had a brother that was a year and a half older than me. He ended up committing suicide. And then a year after that, my dad ended up passing away after having surgery, and a blood clot caught him in the heart the next day. So, I was at home with two little brothers and my mom. Unfortunately, my mom, love her, but she was a wreck, and can't blame her. She just lost a child and her best friend and soulmate. So yeah, of course, partied. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. The way I was raised up, it was, you're a man, you got to tough it out. Suck your emotions in. Don't show emotions. You don't want to seem weak. Blah blah blah. I mean, that's just how it was taught from generation to generation. You got to be tough as a male. So I had a hard time dealing with that. So I ended up moving from Northern Kentucky all the way to Texas to go to college. Partied there, lost my sports scholarship that I was supposed to have at the University of Texas, and was just kind of going downhill. I was just doing a lot of drugs. Basically, a lot of my roommates were drug dealers, and I was just trying to numb the pain because I just felt so much pain and rage. I didn't know how to deal with it. So one day, I felt like my life was going down the toilet. So I moved back to Kentucky to clean myself up, and it was just still having a hard time figuring out like who I was, what I wanted, how to be happy. I had always a laid back kind of personality, which, I guess a lot of people would assume that I was doing good, but in honesty, I was not. And then finally my daughter arrived when I was 30, and that kind of gave me a light fire up the butt to get moving and motivated. And when she was born, I never was around kids before her, never held a child. And so she was my first. And when she was born, that was the most magical experience I ever had. I bawled like a baby, was super happy to see her and have her and hold her in my arms. Her cry was like a goat. It sounded so funny. But I was just like, all right, I want to be the best dad I can be. And that was kind of the flint of the fire, that I was trying to be the best I could. And as she was getting older, I was experiencing things where, when she would cry, like I would get mad and I had no idea why. And like she was triggering something. And I just felt like a horrible parent. And so I started finding these developmental books and like following people on social media. And one thing led to another. I kind of went through some programs to kind of help myself and started journaling and everything. So now, here we are today. So normally, I like to journal in the mornings and at night to kind of get, whatever frustrations I have out of me. So they're not just lingering in my sleep. And also too is like kind of help me kind of clear my day. Of course, I always have my cup of coffee, and then I like to
pot of coffee. It's pot of coffee. He's
pot
lying,
of coffee,
everyone.
at least one. But I like to be able to kind of just wake up and kind of get through, and then I'll do some meditation to kind of help set me off, and then get on my work day. And then at night, wind down. Usually try to have a cup of tea, maybe read a little bit more, and then journal. And then, try to have a good night's sleep.
Where do you find time for working out in nature? Because you're out in nature a lot. You try to at least do nature once a week.
Yeah. I try to at least once a week. So I just try to schedule around everything and, consolidate, my work days. Some days I'll work a lot harder and longer just so I can have that experience outdoors, get myself out there and reboot and reset.
For sure. And I thought you were going to answer that question with just how many vitamins you took a day and meditation. And instead, I got the whole backstory, which is incredible that you shared that with everyone. It's, some people never have experienced death the first time, much less in those ways.
Yeah. And there for the longest time, I couldn't talk about it. It would just upset me. But I feel good now that I can talk about it openly, because I feel like it helps me every time I do. And then, also too is like, I hope that other people hear the same thing, that have experienced similar situations and be able to know that there always is way out. You know, sometimes there's a lot of test and error. I mean, I tried a lot of things that didn't work, and some of the things that worked before don't work now. So it's like always, you know, I just got to
It's always
remember that,
evolving.
yep,
Healing's
there's
always
never a
evolving.
finish line. You know, it's
Yeah.
always growing.
Death and grief is a weird thing because sometimes you sit and hold the hand of your relative who's dying of cancer for 6 months, and you're way ahead of it. You know that you've had plenty of time to prepare for the death. And then one day you get a call that, you know, someone got hit by a bus, and it's like, wow, then you're wondering what your last words were to that person,
Yeah.
you know? So very weird situations. You and I had vastly different 30s. You get a child dropped in your lap at 30. I was drunk in a double wide trailer in Huntsville, Alabama, having a nervous breakdown. The double wide trailer was also a strip club. I should say that.
Yeah.
much different 30s.
Up Alabama.
Oh boy. But yeah, no, that's a great story. Anthony, I really do appreciate you sharing all that, because I wasn't fishing for you to tell those stories, but I'm glad you shared it, because I feel like it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's really funny to me because I would sit at that bar, at that Irish pub, you drinking Guinnesses that you pour for me, and someone would sit down next to me and they would ask me, you know, it is bar conversations, right? Like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you would talk to the person next to you. They don't know anyone there. So at the time, my wife, it was really kind of, I wasn't really working much on my own stuff. I was helping my wife cultivate her business. And as part of that, I was just a photographer for her. That's all I did, was just exercising my creative juices as a photographer. And while I was thinking about what my next move would be. And I remember people would sit down next to me and they would ask what I did. And rather than tell them about all the Hollywood stuff, like all the really good stuff I did, because I just didn't want to talk about all that for like hours and hours. So I would just say I'm a photographer, you know, just a simple one. I could have said I was a plumber, but if they asked me questions, I wouldn't know how to answer it.
Right.
You know? So as a photographer, you know, and then they would always respond to me with stuff like, "Oh man, that's cool." He's like, you know, and someone would say, "I used to write poetry," or "I was in a band," or they always had something creative they did, and they always felt down that they weren't still doing it. And the conversation, it was really weird, just the psychology of seeing the types of people that came in bars and how they had sacrificed the stuff they really wanted to do and the life they wanted to have for being in the matrix. It was very, very sad to witness that, you know, and it was more than one person. So many people, they had dreams, and then the dreams vanished.
Yeah.
And I don't subscribe to that people need to be that way. And here you're living proof of that you're heading into your third act, living the dream, because you've got a handle on things now.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's just funny because, like I said, throughout my whole life, I was just always trying to figure out, you know, what it is I'm supposed to be doing, what it is, because like I always felt jealous of people like knowing what they loved, knowing what they wanted. And like me, I didn't. Like I felt like I can do whatever and I'd be good at it. And I have been, you know, I mean, shoot, like in high school, I played baseball, basketball, track, cross country, and football. And I was good at all of them. So it was just like, all right, well, what do I pick to do the best, you know, to be the best of the best? And I just was always having a hard time finding it. And I feel like where I'm at now is probably the closest I've ever been, and can actually sit there and say, all right, 5 years from now, I see myself from here. Where before that, you asked me where I was going to be at in 5 years, I'm like, I don't know, somewhere.
You could have pursued your dream career as a DJ at raves, but you know, now you get to introduce really incredible people to new audiences and put good out in the world. I don't think you would have put good out in the world as a DJ at
No,
raves.
I don't think I would have been any good anyways. I'm not very musically inclined.
You're more of a spectator, not
right. I enjoy it.
Oh, wow. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you coming out and being the 98th guest of the Quest podcast. And if you don't mind, tell everyone how they can find Crown International out there on social media and the interwebs.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it. And I feel very honored that you have added me onto the extensive list of multiple wonderful people that you've had on your podcast.
He's reading from cue cards right now.
Yeah.
I told him to say that.
But you can find me on my website, crowninternational.us. There you can also be able to find all the social media that is interconnected with Crown International, or you can actually find me on my Instagram my name is Anthony Smith, and everything is linked on my link tree to other sources as well for other social medias and websites and everything like that. So that's the best way to find me.
It's good. I'm glad you clarified that, because just searching Anthony Smith on Google,
there's too many. Yeah. My name is Anthony Smith, all in one word. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, come back again when we're heading toward 200 or 300 episodes.
All right. Well, as long as you have me.
For sure. Forever, man.
Forever.
We'll talk soon. Take care.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Metacortex Publishing hopes that you've enjoyed this presentation.
Please take a moment to listen to some other podcast offerings from Metacortex Publishing.
The Danceology podcast interviews the great masters of dance, the working professionals starring in today's most exciting shows, and the rising stars ready to amp up the craft. I'm your host, Edyta Stawinska from Dancing with the Stars. Join me as I dive into the world of dance, uncovering unique stories and the fascinating personalities of industry professionals on Danceology.
Hi, I'm Father Daniel Duplantis, a Catholic priest, martial artist, and host of the Karate Priest podcast. Have you ever wondered what the church teaches about different topics? Are you a martial arts enthusiast or just someone who wants to learn more about martial arts? I'd like to invite you to join me and many guests on my podcast as we cover topics of faith, everyday living, and martial arts on the Karate Priest podcast.
The No Earthly Explanation podcast investigates the things that are unexplainable, hosted by world-renowned investigative researcher Donald R. Schmidt and scientist Ellie Ringo. Follow them as they look for evidence for things that have no earthly explanation. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Every year, tennis players from around the world compete for excellence, triumphing against all odds to emerge the champions. I'm your host, Maddie Harrison. Join me as I get up close and personal with these dynamic individuals and find out what it takes to go for greatness. Let's go beyond the match.
Cult Following is a podcast that studies the personalities and common traits of cult leaders and their followers. Get the real story behind these infamous and oftentimes tragic cults from a new perspective, through exhaustive research, and from interviews with people that were there. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hi everybody, I'm Amber Rose, the religious hippie, and I host the podcast A Catholic's Perspective. Join me every 2 weeks as I release episodes targeted towards helping young Catholics navigate their ever-changing secular world while staying strong in their faith. Whether you are a Catholic or not, all are welcome here. So if this is something that interests you, feel free to tune in. You can find A Catholic's Perspective on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I hope to see you there. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fischer and Anthony Smith and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for Metacortex Publishing at metacortexpublishing.com or find us on social media for other unique content.